Hello everyone, this is Aiden with Aiden Plays Games, and today I wanted to provide you with some tips that I think are helpful for new players when starting out in New World Aeternum. Many of us decided to return to New World to check out the Aeternum relaunch, but many players are trying to figure out the game for the first time, and I wanted to give some recommendations of what I found helpful getting back into the game myself. My first recommendation starts during the character creation process and involves choosing your character's archetype. Many new players are going to look at appearance and weapons that each archetype offers, but in my opinion, you get far more value out of the trade skills. Starting off with the select skills at level 50 gives you a major advantage in the early game, such as being able to mine rare ores or being able to harvest higher value plants. In New World, weapons and gear are super easy to come by and get for the specific build you want to run. There's programming in place that causes loot that is relevant to your weapons and skills to drop far more often, so it is very easy to start off with one weapon and then pivot into another. Because of this, I recommend starting with an archetype that has trade skills that you think would be enjoyable to use instead of focusing on what weapon you want your character to use. My second recommendation is have fun trying out all the different weapons to see what you like best. In New World, it is super easy to switch between weapons to figure out what playstyle you want your character to have. I myself have tried out over half of the weapons to see what combo and gameplay I find the most enjoyable. As mentioned before, when you pivot to new weapons, you will find most of the loot you acquire will support the stats that you need for that build. You can also respec your attributes for free until level 60, allowing you to go from a focus-centered life staff to a strength-based greatsword like I did. It is also very easy to gain weapon mastery on each weapon, so you never get the feeling of being left behind after a weapon swap. When I switched to the greatsword at level 30, it took me about an hour to get up to 11 mastery, which gave me a feel for the abilities and enough points on the skill tree to determine if I enjoyed it or not. My third recommendation is to join a faction as soon as possible. Faction quests will pop up for players once they reach level 17. Once a player completes the faction quest line, they can choose to join that faction and gain access to the PvP flag, faction chat, and the ability to join a company within that faction. You also gain access to faction missions and faction shop rewards that include powerful gear, weapons, consumables, and more. My favorite part of being in a faction is the PvP flag, allowing you to battle other PvP flagged opposing faction members in the open world. This is a great way to gain weapon mastery, and personally I find PvP to be the most fun part of the game. With the PvP flag enabled, you also gain 10% bonus experience, allowing you to level faster, along with 1% luck bonus and 3% luck gathering bonus. When deciding on what faction to choose, I recommend going with whatever one seems the most interesting to you. Faction power on each server will differentiate, and if you realize you made the wrong choice, you can switch every 60 days to a different one. My fourth recommendation is to focus on your trade skills while leveling. Many players will only care about their weapon mastery and run from quest to quest trying to hit level 65 as fast as possible. While this is a totally valid strategy, I found that leveling up my trade skills as I went allowed me to always feel like I had things to do in each zone. As you get to higher level zones, the materials within them will require higher trade skill levels to interact with, such as ore that requires higher mining levels, or plants that require harvesting to gather. High level trade skills also makes it easier to generate economy on your character and build coin as you go. I also find it really fun to spend an hour hunting for ore or chopping down trees, which gives me that RuneScape nostalgia from playing as a kid. My fifth recommendation is to prioritize mount quests. If players own the Rise of Angry Earth expansion, they will gain access to the mount quest once they hit level 20. Completing this quest gives players access to a mount which greatly increases the speed they can move around the map. Once a mount is acquired, players can level up their riding skill to gain increased mount speed and mount gear that makes their mount even more valuable. Players can earn riding skill by either feeding their mount or by completing the riding quests. I highly recommend taking the time to do the quests. Even though they can be time-consuming, I have found it extremely helpful to have faster riding speeds to make navigating the map much easier. My last recommendation is to play the game your way. New World offers so many different playstyles between what weapons you choose, PvE or PvP content, what trade skills you want to focus on, and so much more. The beauty of this game is that you can decide to focus only on the main quest line and rush to hit max level, or you can decide, I want to spend the next 8 hours chopping down trees and work on maxing my trade skills. Either way, decide what you have the most fun doing and focus on that. There are so many guides for the most optimal way to play the game, but I recommend figuring out what you enjoy and sticking with that. In my opinion, that is the ultimate New World experience. That wraps up my New World Aeternum beginners tips and recommendations. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments if there are other games you would like to see tips for or upcoming titles that you are excited about playing. Don't just play games, master them. Subscribe and level up with Aiden Plays Games.